you think about the things that can be certain about our lives, you know what they say.
Nothing is certain in life, son, except death. And when you walk into Little Caesars, there'll be a $5 hot and ready pizza for you.
What about taxes?
We're from the IRS.
I forgot taxes.
I wish it was that simple. But yeah, the kid is right. It's not hot and ready's, it's taxes. And I think it was Ben Franklin who actually said that first. But not about hot and ready's, of course. About the only thing that we can be certain of is death and taxes. And we're all required to do a tax return every year if we owe, right? Even if you don't owe, maybe you've already filed yours for 2022 and you've received your return already. Or maybe you're self-employed and you're getting your ducks in a row for the June 15th deadline that's upcoming. But if you're one of a significant number of Canadians who don't file a return every year because it's too daunting or, there are barriers preventing you from getting it done, you could actually be missing out on government benefits. And that's why there's a push underway to enable more Canadians to auto-file their taxes.
So many people in the country who have difficulty with reading, with numbers, and, reading the CRA's documentation, even for people with good reading skills, is not particularly simple. It's fairly intimidating.
That's what's partly driving the program launching next year. It's meant to help vulnerable Canadians, and the scaffolding for it already exists.
The thing is, the CRA already has most of the information you're going to send them anyway, because all of those papers from your employers, your banks, your statements, they already have copies of those. Most people have very simple returns. So if we created some kind of automated system, we're not going to reach 100% of Canadians, but we're first going to reach those that have the lowest incomes, which have the most to gain.
The program was announced back in March as part of the federal budget, and the way it works is, as you heard, the CRA already has a lot of the data it needs to do the paperwork for simple returns. If there's anything extra that they would have access to, like, say, receipts for donations, that would be up to you to disclose. Also, part of that budget announcement expanded access to a CRA service already in place for people on lower incomes, and that launched back in 2018.
It's a plan for affordability for Canadians.
More low-income families will be able to have their tax returns filed automatically. The federal government announced in the 2023 budget it will be opening up to 2 million people by 2025.
That top-up is allowing some Canadians with lower incomes to auto-file simple returns over the phone, with the goal of increasing the number of people who can use it by about threefold. The shift toward auto-filing was first mentioned in the 2020 speech from the throne.
The government will also work to introduce free, automatic tax filing for simple returns to ensure citizens receive the benefits they need.
It was one of several budget measures the Liberals promised to put in place during that throne speech to help with the increasing cost of living. The experts and advocates behind the push say it's because many Canadians don't file taxes at all, and most of them are on lower incomes. One researcher at Carleton University did a study on tax filing in 2020, looking at the results from the 2015 tax year. And it said between roughly 10 and 12% of overall working-age adults don't file.
What our research kind of shows is that there's lots of people who don't and who might benefit from doing so and perhaps don't know. Perhaps they fear they're going to get they have something to pay rather than something to receive, and then it's perhaps better not to know, better not to poke that bear, the CRA bear that is. And so in that case, you end up with a lot of people not filing their taxes.
It's estimated that non-tax filers were eligible for $1 billion worth of government rebates and programs in the 2015 tax year alone. So think about the Canada Child Benefit or the Canada Housing Benefit. If you don't file, you don't get it. The government says tax refunds may represent the largest infusion of cash that people on fixed incomes will receive for the year. So that pilot project going into effect next year, it's going to make the whole process a lot more accessible.
It might not be always possible to gather all of those documents. Find someone who can help you with figuring out what you need to send to whom at which moment. And so you get people who maybe file once every 2 years or every 3 years, but of course they're not getting the benefits.
And Canada is actually one of the few Western countries that puts the burden of filing taxes onto the taxpayers. But there are several countries where people don't have to do taxes at all. Slovenia, Norway, Denmark, and Australia already have systems that are largely automated. They're all a bit different, but basically governments fill out information on your behalf with what they know of your income and deductions, and then ask you about any other information that might reduce your tax burden. In some cases, the process takes just a few minutes. So how realistic is it to expect actual change in our tax system? And what are some of the roadblocks preventing it from already being in place? Let's head back to the studio and talk to Anis Hadari. Hey, Anis.
Hi, Lauren.
Senior business reporter Anis Hadari is in Calgary, and he's here to help us unpack some more about this. So, we've talked about the potential positives here, but, there must be some downsides. It's hard to imagine, downsides of not having to file your taxes, but can you kind of walk us through what those might be?
Yeah, so there are a lot of upsides. You don't have to do the paperwork for one thing. That's always a bonus. But some of the downsides involve how complicated our tax system is. There's lots of tax credits. There's lots of different things in general that you add to your taxes. How many kids you have, your marital status, maybe you got divorced, maybe you moved. There's all sorts of changes that sometimes the Canada Revenue Agency, the Government of Canada in general, doesn't know about you at the time that you have to file your taxes. And if the government doesn't know it about you, then they're not going to know if they hypothetically automatically did your taxes. I spoke to a service agency in Calgary that provides a lot of free tax clinics for residents here, and they sort of had the same opinion. Here's what they told me.
It's great if CRA automatically file taxes, but they will need more information in order to process their tax return correctly. Otherwise, then CRA will need reassessment, right? Because when they receive the notice of assessment, the parents, they'll say, oh, who has filed our taxes? Okay, CRA has filed it, but we did not include our expenditures, right? So in that case, then they will again contact CRA, and the CRA will have to do the reassessment.
So there's any number of things that might need to be added to your taxes after the fact. And if you have to get a reassessment done because you maybe spent $1,000 on medical expenses or you got married, then you really haven't saved any time, and neither has the Canada Revenue Agency, right?
Right, okay, so why haven't we kind of gone ahead and made some of these changes already?
So this isn't the first time that this has come up. Ottawa has launched some initiatives aimed at automating more of our tax filing over the years. It's never really gained a lot of traction, and to be honest with you, we as the public have never gotten a lot of explanation as for why. Some of it is just inertia. It's a decades-old system that we have, and we've gotten used to it. I've spoken with some researchers who have pointed out there is a whole industrial complex behind the current system. There's accountants, there's software. All of this is sold for money, and that is a part of our economy.
There's a big industry, it's North American-wide, that kind of likes this current system. The for-profit tax filing firms are the ones that are there to help you maximize the size of your refund and so forth. So sure, moves to reduce the reliance that consumers might have on that industry. The big players in that industry are really forthcoming with their investors. They talk about how this is a risk to their business.
The CRA, though, is basically the agency that's there to just say, yeah, this is correct, no, this isn't. But the tax filing firms and the people who sell all that software, they want to maximize the size of your refund, and they want to make money doing that as well. But, I don't want to imply that that's the only reason. A lot of it is just, it kind of works the way that it is already, right? There's no urgent crisis when it comes to filing taxes, right?
Yeah, well, you can imagine the implications there would be big. So do you think there, is genuine momentum behind actually implementing this?
There's certainly more talk about it now than there has been before. So I don't know that I would call it a lot of momentum. The government has told us that they are really and truly planning to pilot at least some folks getting to file their taxes automatically. They put it in the budget. They've repeatedly put it in different budget and public documents. So they're certainly moving more towards it. There's also other systems that have come up from the CRA over the past, let's say, decade that are kind of like automatic filing. You can automatically fill in your tax return with a lot of these websites and software that's there. It just sort of cross-references and checks with the Canada Revenue Agency. So that's not quite auto-filing, but it's there. So we are moving towards it. But, the things I talked about are still at play, right? It's not broken. So there is not a huge impetus to fix this either.
Right. So I mean, with that in mind, when do you think we could start to see some real change?
So the Government of Canada has said that they are looking to pilot this. We are expecting that pilot for at least some tax filers to happen maybe next year. And I will say, you know, from a meaningful change perspective, the federal government has also really increased the amount of money that goes to agencies that help people file their taxes for free. They just announced that a couple of weeks ago, really a week ago. And those are agencies like the one that I spoke to in Calgary. So while sort of the cogs are turning slowly when it comes to automatically filing your taxes so that you don't have to do anything, the government is pouring a lot of money into making sure that it is at least easier for people to get the tax credits and the refunds that they're entitled to. So as for auto filing, next year maybe, but it'll be small when we do see it.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for sure. Anis, thanks so much.
You're welcome.